Brief introduction, I'm Ian Campbell with Alpha Capital. I'm one of the financial advisors, part of the 401k plan. My business partner, Mark L., is also an advisor, so you have two of us. We're going to be going through some of the enrollment details as well as the online enrollment process. I did send Lloyd an email that included these three attachments that we're going to be reviewing, and also some details around contributing in the plan, types of decisions that you're going to be making here today or here in the near future. So kind of hopping into this, the first attachment, or the most important one, is going to be the online enrollment packet. It is 14 pages in length. The first page is a cover page, and the second page is probably the most important thing that we'll cover all day today. This piece is, if you forget anything today, just remember to go to the second page with this online enrollment instructions. The first step for employees is to go to the provider's website, which is Retirement Plan Consultants, and there's the link there. That will launch you to their login page or their home page for the enrollment. This website link will also be used for all future logins as well, so bookmark this link or save it to your favorites. You'll be able to use that as you want to go into any adjustments to your account, make any changes to investments, contribution rates, things like that. So keep that website link handy. Once you get to that website, you'll see a box that will say online enrollment. You'll click that.
Hey, Ian, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does it matter which web browser we use?
It does not. I personally recommend Google Chrome. It tends to work the best, as you guys probably know, depending on who's the developer on the website, it works best in
that's just what I want to make sure.
Other stuff. Yeah.
I just recommend, like, hey, you got to use Firefox or Internet Explorer.
Yep. Yeah, Google Chrome is my recommended browser of choice. So once you pick online enrollment, it'll ask you to type in a plan password. And the plan password that's specific to the business is Lloyd and then NIC in all capital letters. So make sure you are putting that in there. It is case sensitive. And I'm going to hop over to pages 8 through 12 of this document, and it goes through the exact screenshots of those steps that I had mentioned and also all future steps. It would take literally about 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how quick you are, to go through the online enrollment process. Again, you go to that website link, you'll see this online enrollment in the top left corner. You'll click that once. It'll ask you for that plan password, again, Lloyd, and then NIC, all capital letters. And then it'll ask you to put in some contact information, verify you in the system, and then setting up a username and password. After you've completed those steps, you'll be asked to put in beneficiary information, making those decisions around how much and traditional versus Roth. But I did want to mention one thing before we hop over to the enrollment form, is about halfway through the progress is you'll be asked to pick what source of money you want your investments to be deployed to. And what this is you have contributions from yourself and you have contributions from the company. And what this selection would be is, how do you want those money buckets invested? Do you want them to be invested the same, or do you want to have two different investment strategies? We highly recommend that you just pick one investment strategy for all of your money combined. And by picking all sources, that would have one investment strategy for both buckets of money, essentially. So we recommend picking all sources. If you did want to invest your contributions versus company contributions differently, you can, do that and select it. It is harder to manage two investment scenarios or strategies for multiple money types if you would like. But just wanted a food for thought. We recommend all sources in that example. Again, for folks that are going to be going through the online enrollment process, pages 8 through 12 are very straightforward. If you need any assistance that's going through that, please reference that document as you're going through those steps. You'll get a confirmation page at the end. It'll verify all your contact information, your selections with how much you want to save, and then your investment selections, and you can make any adjustments to that if you need to on that review page. For the purposes of the call, we do like to go over to the paper version of the form just to mention the type of information that you're going to be putting in and the decisions that you're going to be making as well in the form of a discussion today. So the first really information that you're going to be putting in is all contact information. Is going to be very self-explanatory. The one unique piece to each of you is going to be your date of hire. So if you don't know that, verify it with Lloyd. Lloyd, I would say just make sure that those people are armed with that information as they complete either the form or the online enrollment. We do recommend online. Yeah, the online enrollment is recommended. It's safer, it's more secure, and it's faster really for everybody too. So hopping over to the discussion around the decisions that you're going to be making, the first one being, am I going to participate or not in the plan? Hopefully the answer is yes for everybody. In the event that it is a no, or you have people that are eligible that don't want to participate, they will fill out this paper form and actually select this third option, I elect not to contribute in the retirement plan at this time. This form will actually serve as a waiver. We don't need a copy of that. RPC doesn't need a copy of that. It's just really for your records there at the business. It is not necessarily a no forever. If people do say no in January, they can enter the plan in July or any open enrollment window, which would be January and July every year. They're forward once they meet eligibility. They do have to fill out a paper form if they are saying no. There is no way of signing a waiver electronically, unfortunately, at this time. So if there is that case, have them fill it out and just keep a copy of it. For those who do want to participate in the plan, you have two different contribution types or options to pick from. One is being a pre-tax or traditional contribution. The second would be a opposite of traditional, which would be an after-tax or Roth contribution. And the difference between the two is when the money is taxed. It's either taxed today at your effective tax rate in that present year, or it's taxed when you withdraw the money in retirement at what your effective tax rate would be at that time. Because we don't know what tax rates are going to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now, it is somewhat of a best guess. The argument is that if you're going to be in a low tax bracket now and you want to pay your taxes today, then do the Roth after-tax contribution. If you're in a higher tax bracket or higher earners and you would like to reduce your taxable income by your contributions, then the pre-tax traditional might be the best case scenario. Again, there's not a perfect answer. Everybody's situation is slightly different on that. We tend to see people that are going to be younger or in their earlier working years do the Roth because they're going to hedge their bets that taxes are going to go up in the future or they're going to be making more money in the future. And then at that point, they would switch over to a pre-tax contribution. You can adjust. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, on the Roth retirement plan, is there a maximum dollar amount? Is it just like the 401k? Or is it like a traditional Roth, but there's only so much you can put into it each year?
So there's no income limits on the Roth 401k. The IRS contribution limits for all 401k plans is $19,500 this year. So between the two,
that's for the traditional 401k and the Roth.
Correct. Yep. So it's whatever you could do 10 in one and then 9,500 in the other, but you cannot go over the $19,500 amount. If you are over age 50, you can put in an additional $6,500 if you would like, and that's what's called a catch-up contribution. So you can put in a total of $26,000 in the 401k plan if you are over age 50. If you're under age 50, the $19,500 limit would be applicable. And that again is only the employee contribution amounts. That does not include any company contributions at all.
Yeah.
So depending on which you decide, pre-tax or Roth, you can always adjust it at any time, their future. The next piece would be the how much. The reason why there's boxes there is 8% is a national average. So all age groups and all industries, all states, the average individual is saving 8% of their income into their 401k plan. 10% would be the recommended number that folks like myself and Mark would tell you that you should be saving. If you were to do some research around how much should you be saving, you're going to see that 10% number very commonly across articles and research around that. Some people who are, say, call it late to the game or just starting out, maybe in their mid 30s or even 40s, that 10% number is actually probably going to be even higher for you. It should be in maybe even that 15% range too, at kind of making up for lost time. We want to be realistic with people's expectations. If you're going to save, say, 2 to 3% of your income and expect a replacement of income in retirement and a comfortable retirement based off of just saving that small amount of money, it's not going to be too realistic. So we want to be educating on what you should be saving and what you need to be saving in order to reach your goals in retirement. Again, there is a blank box. You can put whatever amount you would like in that. In whole percentage. You can't do like 0.5%, so you can't do like 1.5. You have to do whole percentages on that amount. You also have an option of putting in a flat dollar amount if you would like in the system. We tend to recommend a percentage of income rather than a flat dollar amount. One thing that is important too is there is a company benefit available to who participates in the plan, or people that are contributing. You are eligible for that company match, and I'll explain that in a couple different ways. The company match is what's called a safe harbor match, and it is a 4% maximum match that you are eligible to receive. The match is 100% on the first 3% that you put in, and then 50% match on the next 2% on 4 and 5. So if you put in 1, you'll get 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. If you put in 4, you'll get 3.5. If you put in 5, you'll get 4. So in order to get the full benefit of the company match, you would at least want to save at a minimum of 5% or greater to get that full benefit of the 4%. The company match is always going to go into a pre-tax bucket as well, because the company is not paying taxes on your behalf. So if you are trying to hedge between Roth and pre-tax, just as an example, let's say you're an employee, you want to save 5% in Roth, then there's going to be a money type in your 401k account that's going to say employee contributions, Roth, and then that's where that 5% will go. Then there'll be another line item that will say company contributions, and it is in a pre-tax form. So you'd have 5% going into Roth, 4% going into that pre-tax in that example. Again, you would have to save at least 5% or more to get that company benefit of 4. If you do something greater than 5, you still get that 4. So let's say you're at 10% pre-tax or 10% Roth, you're still going to get that 4% company match that would go into a pre-tax bucket. So I wanted to pause there. Are there any questions at all about the contribution types, the how much, the company match?
No.
All right. So we're going to hop over to the kind of last couple pieces here. The final one, decision-wise, is going to be the investments. All of these investments are all institutional grade, meaning that they're the lowest expense ratio available to investors. All of these are all top quartile performers as well. There's a great list of choices to pick and choose from, a lot of different asset classes and categories to pick and choose from as well. You'll see as we are reviewing these investments every quarter, there may be a fund that will fall out of favor if they do not meet a certain evaluation criteria every quarter. We'll then replace that. So as just an example, I'm going to pick on JP Morgan Large Cap Fund. If this JP Morgan Large Cap Fund did not meet certain evaluation criteria for consecutive quarters, we'll pull it out and replace that with an exact replica of that fund. So another large cap type fund may not be JP Morgan, it may be some other company manager wise. There's no administrative duties on the business or the employees. If you had money invested in that one fund, it would literally get sold one day and moved over to the new fund. You'd be provided notices electronically, and all of that heavy lifting would be done for you. There's no cost of going in and out of any of these investment choices. You can change your investments every single day if you wish. You'll have a username and password once you do the online enrollment, and you can log in 24/7, 365 and make those adjustments.
Okay, Ian, that's great. And we can go in and you can pick your different funds at any time.
Correct.
How about as far as the adjustment, as far as how much you want to contribute? Can you do that every time, or is that just every 6 months?
So it's technically every 6 months, but we do tend to see people will just leave their contribution amount, in there for the whole year. Some people are trying to be strategic with maxing out their contribution amount too. So, for instance, somebody may say, hey, I want to save, $500 a paycheck to get up to that, max limit as well. And then it would ultimately stop. We tend to see people that if they do change it, you'll get a notification, and then you would just want to make sure that you change it inside of the payroll system if people do change it. It's kind of a gray area. We tend to see people won't change it at all throughout the year, and they'll just kind of live with it. But if you do have people changing it, You don't want individuals changing it every single pay period, but if somebody does need to change it for particular reasons, they want to drop it down because they have other expenses, or hey, they're making more money, they want to bump it up. It's really up to your discretion to make that change kind of mid-cycle, if you will. And employees can always go to zero. That's one thing that's in IRS rule. So if you have an employee that needs to stop contributions, they can always go to zero at any point throughout the year.
Okay. And then how about vesting?
So vesting on the company match is always 100%. So for people who don't know what vesting means, is the money that you would be given for the company match each pay period. So as an example, let's say you make $1,000 paycheck every 2 weeks. That $1,000 is going to be paid out to you in the form of your income. Let's just say you save 5% of that $1,000. That's $50. So $50 is going to be withheld from your paycheck and put into your 401k account. Now, based off of that example of the company match, you're going to get a 4% company match when you say 5%. So that's going to be $40. So $50 is going to go into your account from you. $40 is going to go into your account from the company. Vesting is what's tied to that company match. So for the safe harbor is always vested 100%. There are other types of vesting schedules that are tied to other company matches that does not pertain to this business, but you are vested 100%. And what that means is that $40, once it hits your account, or once you have that withholding from your account, it is 100% yours. The company does not have, call it like a clawback. There are other businesses. I wanted to have it like 10 years or something like that. Right. So the IRS actually only allows 5 years. There are other companies that will tie it to, say a 3-year or a 4-year vesting schedule, but that is void of this. So the company safe harbor match is 100% vested. So if an employee leaves, the following week after they get a company match, they take all of that money with them. There are vesting schedules that's tied to other components like a profit share. So at the end of the year, if a business elects to do a profit share contribution, that would be on a different vesting schedule. Normally it's like a 4-year or a 5-year vesting schedule, where if employees have been there for a year, they'd get 25% of that. And if they left, 50%, 75%, and then 100. So that profit share contribution can act like golden handcuffs in a way to incentivize people to stay longer.
Okay.
But that is not, the profit share is not tied to the safe harbor match. Those are two different company contributions. Okay. So talking about the investments, we've told you you had great choices to pick from, low cost and great performers, but it doesn't really help with that selection. So what Mark and I do from an education standpoint and advice is to help provide some advice around what we feel would be appropriate for you to pick, or what's also would be deemed diversified as well. So we put together this asset allocation guide every quarter. This is a list of all the investment choices on that left-hand column again. The asset class or the category that they represent is in that second column. The ticker symbol is in that third one. If you care to do some more research, you can find fact sheets on the website with RPC, but we recommend actually just going and Googling this ticker symbol and looking at Morningstar or that Fund Family's website to get more information, just because it's real time rather than maybe the last quarter statement for the fund company. So this top larger rectangle is built in 5 different risk tolerances, more for those who want to be hands-on with their investments. So if you want to be hands-on, we've built 5 different models based off of risk tolerance, depending on where you fit in that spectrum. For individuals in their 20s and 30s, that aggressive column on that far right would be appropriate from a risk standpoint. People in their 40s and 50s, that moderate aggressive column would be appropriate. Individuals in their 60s, this moderate column would be appropriate for you. If you're looking purely for preservation or lower risk, then that conservative or moderate conservative column would be appropriate. We do tend to update these percentages, normally like 2 to 3 times a year. We don't do it every quarter because some of the market news doesn't ultimately change every 3 months, but we do tend to adjust this from time to time. For instance, this 4% may go to 6%, or we may invest, this 4% up in a different asset class or different category. So we would want you to make that change and be in front of the least, aggressive or the least risk standpoint, plus the highest chance of higher returns as well. So if you are going to pay attention to these columns, is that we just make sure that you are paying attention to those adjustments and you adjust your portfolio at the same rate as we adjusted as well. You don't necessarily have to, but it would just be our recommended path to do that if you are going to follow it. So that's a hands-on approach. The second option, or a kind of option B, would be to select a target date fund. And the target date funds work in the way that you would find out what year it would be when you reach age 65 or say retirement age 67. You would then be plotted into one of these target date ranges, and that would be your most appropriate fund. And the way these work is they start out aggressive for who are younger because they're going to retire later in life. The blue ones that I've highlighted are the bigger the years for the younger individuals, and those would be very similar to that aggressive column on that far right.
You guys got to update this.
Why
you
is
got
that?
target date 2011 to 2015. You got to update this chart.
So the reason why is that you have people that the vintage series actually gets retired every 5 years. So the 2020 fund would be the most appropriate one. And ultimately, what will happen over the next year, because the 2021 became the most relevant one now in 2020. So this 2015 fund will actually drop off and get invested into this retirement income fund. So eventually, in probably the next 6 months to the year, this 2015 fund will no longer exist, and then there'll be a 2065 fund. It's just part of the cycle. They drop out 5 years and then they add the newest 5-year increment. So you're kind of in one of those transition years, if you will. But if you had somebody that was in their mid to late 60s working for you, that 2015 fund would be most appropriate, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Essentially, what you're saying is they've reached their retirement age, and so now you guys are still working. Okay.
Exactly. And so they fall in 5-year increments because they de-risk every 5 years. So they start out aggressive, and then every 5 years they de-risk to be a little bit more conservative over time. The ones that are closer to the present year, so for instance, the 2020, 2015, and that retirement income one, are going to be very similar to that 50-50 or that moderate column up in the middle at the top. So it is starting out at 90% in equities and de-risking roughly every 5 years, ultimately to reach around a 50-50 portfolio in retirement.
Okay.
So this would be more of a hands-off approach, autopilot. By picking one fund, it is all diversified in that one fund, and then it de-risks for you over time. It's very popular to go into target date funds. About 80% to 75% of participants are saving in target date funds because most people are more of that set it and forget it type mentality. There, again, are no cost of changing your investments at any time. You can pick this strategy, you can pick another strategy, and you're free to do whatever else you would like. You can pick from any of these investment choices at whatever percentage. So we've talked about kind of a hands-on approach, a hands-off. The third would be is just picking your own investment choices at whatever percentage. Mark and I's contact information is going to be in that email signature that you'll most likely get from Lloyd, but it's also on this document if you need to reach us for anything. Employees are glad to reach out to us at any time. We welcome any calls or emails with any questions that you have.
Perfect.
So to hop back over to the enrollment form, just covering over the last 2 items, beneficiary designation form, you'll have the option of putting in beneficiaries on the online enrollment. That would be like a spouse or children, relatives, things like that. Yep. And then the last and final pieces is if you've got an old IRA, an old 401k account that you would like to roll over or consolidate into the plan, if you're eligible to participate, you can roll that money over. There's a team at Retirement Plan Consultants, and we've got a dedicated representative by the name of Stephanie Wolf, who's been helping us set up the plan and onboard it. They'll also be able to help do the heavy lifting of getting in touch with the old provider, providing you the necessary forms to get that money over from that old provider over to the current one. And also this works on the outbound. So if you're no longer working with the company and you want to transfer or roll out your amounts that you've accumulated or rolled in, this form would serve as a distribution or a roll out either to an IRA or 401k plan at your new office. So this form and this mention is just to talk about the money moving into the plan and also moving out of the plan if you're no longer working for the business. And again, RPC, the provider, would be handling those roll-ins or roll-outs if that's applied to you.
Hey, quick question for you, Ian.
Yeah.
So if I got some money in another 401k, I can't roll that over into the Roth IRA, can I?
So when you say Roth IRA, are you talking about this 401k plan with the business, or is it? So yeah, an IRA would be an individual retirement account.
I mean,
so
that would not the Roth 401k. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have a Roth 401k at another institution, part of like an old company, even if you have a Roth IRA at just saying at like Fidelity or wherever, those monies can be transferred over to this new 401k account at any time. There's no time frame around it because it's going from a qualified source like a retirement account over to another retirement account. There's no taxes that's withheld and there's no penalty. If they cut you a check, you technically have 60 days to transfer it from one account over to the other if you take receipt of that money. We highly don't recommend you cash it and then have to write a check back out. That would be a no-no.
No, my question is just because of the pre-tax and post-tax, but you can't go from, if I've got money in a Roth 401k, I can't transfer that over, roll that over to, or I can't go from a Roth IRA to the traditional, or can I go from a traditional 401k, traditional 401k and roll it over into a Roth 401k plan?
Yeah, unfortunately, the way the plan documents are written is that would be called what's called a Roth conversion. So you would convert pre-tax dollars that you haven't paid taxes on, converting it to Roth. So no, that would not be available. And it's very rare that it is available. Sometimes you can do what's called like a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA outside of a 401k plan and do what's called a Roth conversion. But then you would basically, you would pay the income taxes on, you would pay the appropriate taxes in that current year. We don't see it very commonly done, and there are other rules around how much you can do and then when you can do it based off of your income as well.
All right.
But in short, the answer would be not necessarily, it would be a no if you were moving a traditional IRA or an old traditional 401k over to this 401k plan and wanted to move it to a different money type like Roth.
Okay.
Yep.
So essentially what you're telling me, the government's going to make sure they get their taxes on it one way or another.
Exactly. And it normally doesn't work out to be that beneficial to do a Roth conversion unless you've got millions of dollars and you're trying to hedge the tax bet, essentially. There's a lot of push around people doing that, and from the news standpoint and articles around it, just people trying to avoid paying taxes. But there's a lot of research that shows that there's really not truly a huge benefit or a huge difference when people do it in the long run.
Okay.
Yep. But very good question. So that was all the information. I know we're just a little bit over the top of the hour. All these attachments will be in that email. If you have any questions or want to reach out to Mark or I, feel free to reach out to us. If there's anything that we can help with in the future, just let us know. From a timing standpoint, depending on when your upcoming payroll is happening, would be something that you would want to pass on to those employees to either get this done in the next couple of days or if they have a week to do it type thing. That would be just
I'll try to want to get them done by the 15th.
Okay, perfect. And then as we get closer to that 15th, I know RPC will be sending out an email to you. It's like a plan is live email that has a couple steps there that's just contacting your payroll provider and letting them know, hey, I've got the company match safe harbor, and here are the withholding amounts for these 3 or 4 employees, and getting that queued up in payroll for that next upcoming payroll run.
Perfect. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. If there's anything that we can help with, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be in touch here over the next couple of days, Lloyd.
All right. Thanks, Ian.
Of course. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.